Welcome to today's conversation with the curators and the artists featured in the Hearts of Our People Native American Women exhibition, proudly presented at the Renwick Gallery, a branch of the Smithsonian American Art Museum. We are honored to present this groundbreaking and bold exhibition, one designed by and for Native women artists that showcases their powerful voices and artistic traditions. This exhibition also reflects the important work of the Smithsonian's American Women's History Initiative, focused on amplifying women's voices, reaching new audiences, and empowering future generations. I would also like to acknowledge my sister museum, the National Museum of the American Indian, that was a partner for us on this important exhibition project. It saddens us greatly that the exhibition was not able to be seen fully during the presentation period at the Renwick Gallery because of the global pandemic. We are delighted the exhibition will, however, be seen in its next venue, and we are sending it off with love and pleasure to make sure that it can be enjoyed by many more. And thus today's digital program is one way in which we can continue the conversation in honoring these dynamic curators, as well as the powerful artists who are part of this exhibition project and have been so since the very beginning. Thank you.
Hello, Skugtash. My name is Anya Montiel, and I'm the curator of American and Native American women's art and craft at the Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian American Art Museum and the National Museum of the American Indian. I am the moderator for this conversation, and I am excited to introduce all of our panelists. Jill Ahlberg Yohe is the Associate Curator of Native American Art at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. She is the co-curator of the Hearts of Our People Native Women Artists exhibition. Jill received her PhD from the University of New Mexico and wrote her dissertation about the social life of weaving in contemporary Dene life. Teri Greeves is an artist and also co-curator of Hearts of Our People Native Women Artists. She is a Kiowa tribal citizen and was born on the Wind River Reservation. Teri has received numerous awards for her beadwork and was a USA Distinguished Fellow in Traditional Arts. Kelly Church is a Black Ash basket maker from an unbroken line of basket makers. She is Anishinaabe, enrolled in the Gun Lake tribe of Pottawatomi, and descended from the Grand Traverse Bay of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. Kelly received her BFA from the University of Michigan and her associate degree from the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe. She has been an NEA National Heritage Fellow and a Smithsonian Native Scholar Fellow. Carla Hemlock is Kanienkeháka, textile and multimedia artist. She received the Excellence in Iroquois Arts Award from the Iroquois Museum. Her artworks are in many private and public collections, including the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian. My first question is, this exhibition, which I'll refer to as HOOP for brevity, recognizes the creative force of women in Native American art and highlights their artistic achievements. There have been other exhibitions focusing on Native women artists, such as Women of Sweetgrass, Cedar, and Sage in 1985 and Watchful Eyes in 1994. But it has been a long time since those exhibits. What did you want to say in this exhibit and why now?
I would like to start by recognizing all of the women that came in the past, which is really the instigator of why I got involved to begin with. And I think it's probably part of why Jill also recognized that this exhibition was needed. It came about from a conversation that Jill and I had with the recognition that there hadn't been exhibitions put forward recently. And that also her and I, perhaps me earlier in my life than her, noticed that most exhibitions of Native American art really were majority exhibitions of women's Native art, and that it hadn't been recognized in a it hadn't been recognized in the art world that that's actually what they were looking at, that the collections in most major museums and certainly in exhibitions of antiquities is majority women's work. There are much men's things that are there, but it's the material, the technical skills and all of that, beadwork, textiles, ceramics, quill work, all of these things are mediums that are held by women traditionally in our communities, passed through women's hands and eyes and hearts to the next generation. And that is where this came from. It was our recognition that it had not been recognized in the fine art world.
I think some people might not realize the amount of time it takes to plan an exhibition, especially one like Hoop with an advisory board and multi-venue locations. When did this exhibition idea begin? How did it come together? What was the timeline?
Well, as Teri mentioned before, this began with a discussion between Teri and I. We had been thinking about this independently, and we came together in a conversation actually at an art market one day. For me, it was this understanding that there had been no exhibitions dedicated to celebrating Native women artists across time and place. And that was absolutely stunning to recognize that, as Teri talked about. So we knew nearly 7 years ago, I believe it was, that this was something that required a range of different perspectives, required time built in, required deep conversations, required deep listening, something that is perhaps different than other museological kind of approaches that seek to create one narrative. We had no interest in having one narrative. We wanted as many narratives to be present in the exhibition. So that required a long period of time. So it took, from start to finish, from about 5, maybe 6 years for it to work. And that was through commitment to these ongoing conversations that we had with our advisory boards, with our community engagement boards, and with fellow artists.
Hoop takes a collaborative and inclusive curatorial approach. Jill and Teri, you formed an advisory board consisting of Native artists, curators, and Native art historians. The catalog also contains nearly 70 essays and almost as many authors. This inclusive approach allows for multiple voices and perspectives, moving away from the curator as expert model. Please talk about the power of the collaborative process, especially as a model for museums.
As a Native person, as a Kiowa woman, I have no right to speak for Kelly Church or Carla Hemlock or anyone else. I'm not from their place, I'm not of their people, and I don't have the rights and responsibilities that are granted with that. This is something that is intrinsically known, I think, with most Native people who grow up in their home communities or connected to their home communities, that I would never speak as a Seneca. I can't. I would never speak as an Ojibwe. I can't. That's not for me to do. And so I really think that the curatorial process was built on the idea that multiple voices are needed because representation cannot be done by one singular voice or one particular person, because at least from my perspective, and I definitely feel this from other Native artists, that in no way can fully represent an individual of another tribe. So the idea came very early on that we needed as many voices as we could have to help us understand what we were going to be looking at. I have a background in beadwork. I do not have a background in ceramics and basketry and textiles and all the other amazing, beautiful mediums that are out there. Jill has a background in textiles, which she learned at school. So all of this required us to bring in as many voices as we could get. And that's where our advisory board came from. 21 women, artists, scholars, Native and non, came together to help us understand what this exhibition was going to be about. And the question that Jill posed initially was, why do Native women make art? And it was a very simple question that every single woman sitting around that massive table had an answer for. Different, but we all had answers for it. And that's why it probably took us 5 years, because this thing has never happened before. And it is also in no way a complete vision of what Native art looks like by far, and what Native women's art looks like either. And so our hope was, we knew going in that it was a beginning of a conversation with a lot of people, a lot of communities, and that it was the very first, hopefully, of many more conversations to happen that would choose to use this process of actually engaging with the communities with which the work that is being shown in these institutions are actually involved in presenting that to the public. That was very important to us. And consequently, we had a very large group of people we were working with and much input and a lot of juggling, and it was not easy. By any means, it was not easy. But I think it was well worth it.
I just want to add too, from a curatorial perspective of having a career in curation, it is supremely important to recognize the history of curatorial practices in Indigenous art and of art more broadly. And it is standard practice that the idea, as Anya, as you had pointed out, as the curator as an expert in the field, as the curator as the authority in the field. And that was something that we felt very strongly that model needed to be shifted, because it is an assumed model that one person has the right and the authority to talk about a whole range of art forms and philosophies and ways of life and ways of being, that it is impossible. And instead, so we created this exhibition board, the advisory board, with these phenomenal women who we knew had the expertise. We could all draw upon their expertise to help create something. Yes, as Teri said, it was hard, that it was difficult. This is a hard process to do, but in the long run, this is a practice that I would argue should be standard practice in all curatorial processes.
I have something to add to that. I keep hearing, the feedback I keep hearing is, wow, this is very interesting. What a wonderful thing that you've added artists to your curation. It's really nice to have an artist-led curatorial team. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? This is not an artist-led curatorial team. This is an Indigenous-led curatorial team from Indigenous communities. And these women are artists as well as being culture holders, language bearers, multiple faceted things. They are not just artists that were brought in to help curate an exhibition of other artists. These were women that we specifically asked because of their community and cultural knowledge. And so while it can be curatorially seen as an artist curatorial team, that's not actually what Jill and I were doing. We were asking women who had not only community knowledge, but also artistic knowledge to help us come together to form the curatorial team for this exhibition.
I have a follow-up question. Jill and Teri, as co-curators, how did you support each other through this process? How did you use your strengths?
We're like, I don't know, like, how do you say?
Kindred spirits.
Yes, kindred spirits, exactly. Like simpatico on stuff, and definitely like, Zoom, let's go do this. Yes, you know. So we meshed from the beginning. A partnership, I think, as in a marriage or anything else, really requires trust. And I think that I definitely trusted Jill, and hopefully she trusted me.
Absolutely.
yeah, to figure this out, because this is really important and heady stuff. This is not stuff to be messing around with. And I think both her and I went into this with the recognition that it wasn't just about individually us or our careers, that it was a much bigger thing that we were trying to do, and that it required us to be respectful and all of that. And that's where the trust was.
This question is for everyone on the panel. The exhibition is organized around 3 themes that relate to the core question, why do Native women artists create? The themes are legacy, relationships, and power. Would someone share with me what each of those themes mean to you?
I think all of them are very important to everything that we do, because they speak of how we carry on things, how we continue our relationships with our two-legged beings, our winged friends, with our water friends, and with each other. And so part of it, the relationship part, the relationship equated to the relationships to each other in our communities, our relationships by bloodlines, our relationships by clan lines, our relationships to nature, to everything that we do. So each one has these powerful pieces that speak to each of these themes. And so as you walk through the show, if you read what each of those pieces are saying, out from the women's voices, from their languages even, you can get this strong sense of, what relationship is, what legacy is, and what power is. In each piece, you'll feel the power in that piece, you'll see the relationship, and legacy is everything that we have and that we continue to bring forward, but we leave behind as well.
When we had to ask that question of ourselves is, why do women create? Why do Indigenous women create? We had to really look back at the time frame of our women. We had to look back pre-contact. Why were they creating at that time? What were they creating? What was coming out of them? What was going on in that time? And then the viewer, when they do go and look at the works, I think it's really important for the viewer to ask yourself, when you look at that particular piece that you're looking at, what was going on at that time? What were their people going through? Why did she make this? If you look at a lot of that work, these were not happy times. But the most beautiful work came out of those women. I look at the time now, there's such an uncertain time right now. But what are people creating? What are we going to see out of the women even now? I guarantee you it's going to be nothing but beauty. Guaranteed. So when I ask the viewer, when you go through this, when you look at this, look at the time frame and what were they going through? And then ask yourself, why did they continue to create? And they created out of beauty, and they had to continue to create out of beauty. So that it wasn't hard for us to, as a group of women, to define the three parts of this exhibit. It just wasn't difficult at all. What was amazing when all of the women did come together was we were all on the same page, which I thought was, oh my gosh, there's a lot of voices coming in here. What direction is this going to go? But it was almost like we just all walked in there as one, and the voices were as one. And I think it reflects in what you're going to see in the exhibit.
What is a surprise that came about during the planning or execution of the exhibition?
One thing that I'm going to say is surprising but not was the support that we received, the outpouring of support that we received in terms of allowing this exhibition that cost a whole bunch of money. We have loans from 70 different institutions. We had more than 100 loans. So they came from across the United States, what is now the United States and Canada. The requirement for the development of this kind of exhibition requires a lot of resources. One of the things that I think that I was surprised but not surprised, and so grateful for, and I think that is good for the field to understand, is the financial support that we had from our funders, from private foundations, from large foundations, from individual people. And the reason that they supported this, not only because this was the first kind of show of its kind, but they believed in our curatorial process the most. They supported this show and gave abundant resources so that we could realize a project that at its foundation was allowing Indigenous women to create and speak, and give the opportunity for people who may not have any understanding of what Indigenous art is, the experience from Indigenous women. And I think that that was something that was really surprising, but I think that that is something that is important for the field, that people will fund these kinds of projects in the future because they believe in this kind of process.
Well, I'll speak up because they're, on a personal level, what was surprising to me, Jill and I went on Jill and I went on collections visits. We went on several collections visits, over a dozen of them, to many different museums all across the US, in all different types of museums, from big ones to little ones. And I'll tell you what I was shocked at, that there are acres and acres and acres of our things being held in dark cabinets, literally covered in poison, all across the United States. I didn't have actually a conceptual understanding of how much material from our people is warehoused in the United States. And we didn't even get to Europe. God only knows what they have in Europe. So on a personal level, bearing witness to our things being held in prison, covered in poison, and held behind gatekeepers who in general don't allow Native people in to visit these things. You have to be affiliated. You have to know someone. You have to know how to go through the process. It's not easy to get in there, all that kind of stuff. Jill got me in. So that was a very huge wake-up call. I have been in collections since I was a teenager with my mother. She was a trading post operator and an appraiser, and oftentimes went into museums. And I'd been in a couple, but it was the tour across the country with Jill that really opened up my eyes to the vast quantity of material culture held behind locked doors, really held behind locked doors, held away from Native people who might want scholarship from it or something like that. And mistreated, much of it mistreated. Many things that I saw, I was shocked. I was shocked. So that would be my big surprise on a personal level. That's where I'm gonna leave it.
Kelly and Carla, you're artists who have work in the exhibition as well as being advisory board members. I think people may not understand, especially from an Indigenous perspective, the responsibility involved with being on a museum advisory board. Why did you decide to be involved with this exhibition, and how did you see your role on the board?
Number one, I did this because Teri asked, and because I trust Teri. I know Teri, asked and had faith in us, and be given that really big responsibility of someone trusting you and having faith in you to do that big job. I was not going to say no, and I was going to put my best foot forward and put my all into that. And as big as a responsibility as it was, I was really honored and grateful to be part of that responsibility to help give some voices to our Native women and to our the Native women's art that is all over the world.
Quite honestly, when I was first asked, it was I was approached by both Teri and Jill, and my immediate reaction was, no way. It was no. It was absolutely, I don't think so. And because it scared the living daylights out of me, just this entire idea. Even today, it scares me, to be honest, even though it's done and it's traveling, it still scares me. It's a huge responsibility for me to have agreed to. I listened to them, and they told me a lot of the women that were coming on board, and I just thought, oh my gosh. The responsibility, I can't even begin to describe the feeling. You're talking about women's work that you're asked to look at from pre-contact to present. You're asked to, we were asked to really come up with names of women's works or different works. And I can't even begin to tell you the sleepless nights, the belly aching, you name it, because the responsibility was, it's something that will always weigh on me. There are works that should have been in there. There are 10 more spin-offs of this that should take place. This was just the beginning. It just opened the door, because those doors opened. And now that they're open, there are so many women that their voices need to be heard. And I just hope that we were able to just kick that door open a bit.
I have another question for Carla. Walking through time, your artwork consists of a coat, hat, and a purse. The materials used in this work have historical significance along with the bead designs. What are some of the meanings that you wanted to exhibit through walking through time?
Oh boy, that how it came about is I came across that hat in a hat shop, and I purchased the hat. And when I immediately saw that hat, it took me back to the time in our community from the fur trade. Our women, it wasn't the men, but our women wore those hats. And they were the beaver skin hats. And so as soon as I saw it, I purchased it, and I placed it for actually a couple of years where I could just look at it, and I would just envision, and I would think about this coat. And I knew it was going to be a coat that was going to transcend time. It was a coat that was going to be as fashionable 150 years ago as it could be today. And it would be worn from women who were carrying what they were carrying all those years ago to what we're carrying now. And I called it Walking Through Time because a lot of that beadwork that you see in there, it's connecting the women from who came before us to the women that are walking now. And we're still walking, and we're still able to exist as Kanienkeháka women from their struggles, from what they went through. And we still carry that. We carry it today. But we also carry the beauty of their strength. We carry their will to go on. In the back of the coat is our sky domes. That's part of our creation stories. there's a wampum that hangs down, and the wampum tells our stories. You can, in our wampum belts, that's our written language. When an orator would get up, they would hold those belts and they could speak for days on a belt. Those wampum belts tell our stories. I wanted to put that wampum in because as women, we have a lot of stories. So that coat really was just to transcend time. And I'm hoping that in 100 years from now, when someone else sees it, that it will be as fashionable in 100 years as it is now.
And Kelly, your black ash basket in the exhibit entitled Sustaining Traditions, Digital Memories has exterior and interior layers. Would you explain some of the messages in the work and what are some of the traditions and the memories you're speaking about?
The basket is made out of black ash, and so we're in our about 21st year of being infested by the emerald ash borer. Emerald ash borer is an invasive species that came over here on a ship from Asia. It started spreading in Windsor and Detroit, by Detroit, Michigan. So it was in Michigan for about 10 years before we ever discovered it. So by the time we discovered it, we had lost tens of thousands of trees. By the time we began to really understand what was going to happen to our trees as native basket weavers, we were losing even tens more of thousands. So I started making baskets to tell about the emerald ash borer, because when I just told people about the emerald ash borer, they'd be like, cool, Kelly, you're talking about a bug, you know, no one wants to hear about my bug. So I started making these baskets in the shape of a Fabergé egg. So the egg represents fertility, kind of like a beginning, which is where these baskets start. They start from this tree. And then it also has the emerald ash borer in there, which is kind of like the demise of our baskets. But then there's a flash drive in there, which is all of the teachings so we can save them. Now, we've always passed on our teachings with our oral stories and always by visually taking our people into the woods, our children, and showing them exactly how everything's done. We haven't had a reason to record this because it has continued on for thousands of years and many, many generations. But we had a discussion I did with my Akwesasne friends, Les Benedict and Richard David, and we were talking about, you know, collecting seeds for future generations. And then we began to realize that we might skip a generation or two even, and hopefully not two, of harvesters, because what if there are no trees to take the kids out to show them how to harvest? And so the seed collection is what we were meeting for that day, and that is the most important part of it. But if you have the seeds, you grow the trees, you still need to bring back the teachings to the people. So on this flash drive, I have every little step, you know, showing you where the trees grow, what the leaves look like, the leaf buds in the winter, how we identify our bark, how we notch into it, check the growth rings. And then we translated it all into our Anishinaabe language. And I hope to share it with others so they can also translate it into theirs. And so the translation is also to, you know, our words are, we have words for our basket weaving, we have words for our baskets. They need to be kept alive as well. And it's also to purposely make it available for those who are meant to hear it. These teachings are not meant for everybody. They're very culturally entwined. We have creation stories that come out of black ash. We have used them for ceremonies. And you have to use these materials sustainably, which means when, you know, you take a tree, you plant a tree, you save the seeds. So there's a lot that goes into it. So on that flash drive, it tells all of that. It tells about the emerald ash borer. It tells about our seed collection. Ways that we have been trying to preserve this tradition for future uses. I make flashcards, I make videos. I work with a lot of kids. That's the most important part. They will be the planters of those seeds in the future. So the basket itself is emerald green, like the emerald ash borer. Ash borer has a copper belly. And so I incorporated copper, wove it in all around the basket. And that represents the copper belly. But we also have copper from Michigan. We were that was the first metal that we used here in Michigan for our tools. And so that's very important to us as well. So I incorporated incorporated all of these materials that we have always used, our copper, our black ash, sweetgrass, and then combined it with our technology of today. And this is to make sure that these traditions are sustained indefinitely. And while I will share this, with tribes here, that are interested, that want the teachings, there are tribes that still lose those teachings. I could give them the flash drive and it could get lost in a file. It could get lost with a, departing person who knows what happens, but those can get lost. The most important way to teach this is by, the visual teaching and such. But if we ever miss a generation, we will have the flash drive to make sure it is brought back in the future.
What does the field of American art need to educate itself about Native American art?
One of the things that was really impactful in this exhibition is that we have been able to create some opportunities for visitors and for people who read the catalog to see the relationship that has always been a part of Indigenous art and American art. We have been able to, in the exhibition and through catalog essays, been able to illustrate the intricate web of relationships that connect American abstraction with abstraction of Indigenous women artists. So we have that in the art historical record that is lacking in that kind of scholarship and in that kind of awareness, although that awareness of abstraction, as Teri, I'm sure, will elaborate on, is clear and known in many Indigenous communities, and that's the work of women. And we are at a moment, I think, in museums, I'm speaking as a curator, where we are re-examining those categories that we have placed on individual people and communities, in particular with American art. And that's a question for us living in the United States right now. And I think that each museum is grappling with this issue, and how is the history of the exclusion of Indigenous art in the American art canon going to be addressed, and how are museums going to do the reparative work that is necessary, that aligns itself more to telling the story, the true story of American art history and history more generally. And I think that Hearts of Our People can contribute to that ongoing, everlasting conversation.
So my proposition is that American art doesn't exist without Native American women's contributions to it. Native American women have been contributing to it through what Jill brought up, which is the ideas of abstraction. Native women, Indigenous women, I think, across the planet speak through abstraction. The baskets that are behind your head, Anya, the beadwork that is behind my head, the textile work that's behind Carla's head, like all of this is abstraction. We've been abstracting the world since the beginning. And I know this for my people specifically, Kiowas, the men do the pictorial work. They do the representational work, and they are the history keepers because of it, the calendar keepers. For us women, we look at the world through a different set of eyes, and our job is to take that world, put it in some kind of way that when we put it on our people, on our children, on our most important objects, that language of who we are and how we interact in this world that has been abstracted is put on those pieces. And those community members then, when they're looking at that abstraction, see themselves in that, right? Just as Carla's family sees themselves in that quilt behind her, or your people see themselves in them baskets behind you. So I think that if you're truly going to be a curator of American art, to not look at Native women's contributions to American art and what American art has become is, you are missing an enormous chunk of the picture. And I believe that any art historian working today really needs to consider, the American art historian working today needs to really consider how Native women's art, which has represented all Native art for a long time, since the anthropologists first started gathering it and bringing it east. All right, they've been using women's art to collect us, and to have missed that fact that it is women's art by and large that fills these collection spaces that the anthropologists and art historians have been using for years now. Generations of them now have come through those collection spaces, and not one of them have recognized that it's women's voices that they're seeing. At least half, more than that when I went, but at least half. I would say that that is a huge hole in American art history, American art curation, and American art period. So it is my hope and my prayer, it has been since the inception of this exhibition, and one of the reasons why I got involved with it. Our people back home, they don't need this exhibition. They don't need an exhibition to tell them how important our women are to the formation of who we are and how we have, who we were, who we are now, and who we are going to be in the future. We know that. At home, we all know that. This exhibition is for America, so that you all can recognize actually that you have a lot that has been given to you, transferred to you, opened up your ideas of things like democracy and other philosophical ideas. The fact that, you know, perhaps we're all interrelated, and the environment, you know, our crushing the environment actually has impact on us because we are interrelated. These are big picture ideas that come from our people. And I think it is, now is the time. If now is not the time, now is the time for every museum out there to pay attention to this, to recognize that you have been missing a big part of your own story. This is the American story. White America does not exist without the Native American identity. American art, therefore, cannot exist without Native American women's art.
My last question, author Louise Erdrich remarked that this exhibition celebrates the fiercely loving genius of Indigenous women. During this time of multiple pandemics, what lessons can we draw upon from the works in this exhibit to find strength for today and the road ahead?
I'll say that the resiliency and the strength, I think that right there are two things that you can see throughout the show, and those are two things that are going to carry us through today. You know, this pandemic it's serious, it's new, it kills, it's no joke. But our people have been through many of these no jokes in the past, and I think that, you know, that we have strength and we have resilience, and we know how to get through. We know how to weather storms. We know how to come together as a community, because coming together at times like this, that is what matters the most. That's where the strength comes from. Knowing that you can make it, and thinking of how you're going to make it, not thinking of how, you know, how bad things can get, but thinking of how you can make things different and more adaptable to where you are today. That is where your resiliency comes from. So out of this show, you know, look at these fierce women, look at the fierce voices that are coming from these pieces, and feel that resiliency and feel that strength. It will help you get through today.
I just want to maybe go back just to add something to that last question also. What Teri and Jill already spoke to. And that's a lot of the work that you see in museums across Turtle Island. There's times when I've gone into exhibits and I've seen work that's been there that shouldn't be on those walls. There are work that really is off limits. And I think we were able to address that in this exhibit, because we did have one piece that we really rallied behind that we did not want to show. And if there's anything that museums can learn, is that everything that you do have of ours, not all of it is supposed to be out there for the viewing of the public. It shouldn't even be in your possession. It should be back to those societies. It should be back to the people where they belong. So in the future, if there's going to be any type of another Native show, and I'm sure there will be, I hope the respect is given to those items that should not be out there, because I've cringed when I've walked through some major museums and saw things on the wall that had no place there. So if there can be a voice to that, I'm glad that it could take place now. As for this pandemic, oh my gosh, I can't wait till 2020 is over. You know, it's this time is just really, it's like it stopped us in our tracks. It stopped every one of us. And I think it stopped us really where people are looking at it, that it's this, it's that, it's something totally invisible that stopped us. And it stopped us for a reason, because maybe we're just going a little bit too fast. And if you look and you speak to everybody right across the country, boy, is there ever a lot of self-reflection. There's people who are home with lots of time on their hands. There's people thinking of those projects that I really need to create. What am I going to create? What am I going to say? What's my voice going to be? Is it going to be doom and gloom? Hell no. The voices of our women, the voices of our people are going to be nothing about the future. It's about beauty. It's about getting over this together, getting over this with your families, your extended families, in your communities. And it's about helping each other. It's about reaching out not only as women, but as human beings, as Ongwehongwe people, as a human being, and reaching out to each other to get through this time. And I can't wait to see the artwork that comes out of this time.
Thank you so much. The Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian American Art Museum would like to thank Jill Ahlberg Yohe, Teri Greeves, Kelly Church, Carla Hemlock, and all the artists and advisory board members of Hearts of Our People, Native Women Artists, for this wonderful exhibition. Very sad that we only had it in Washington, D.C. at the Renwick for a few weeks. But I want you to know that the exhibition will open to the public on October 7th, 2020, at its last touring venue, the Philbrook Museum of Art in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I encourage you to visit philbrook.org for exhibition and programming information. Thank you.